with another Tech Tuesday. As always, drop us some marine-related technical questions, bass boats, pontoon boats, outboard motors, inboard motors, anything you want. We'll try to do the best we can to get you some answers and some info. David George, thanks for the thumbs up. Appreciate that. I'm assuming that's for a good audio. Thanks for joining us. I will point out the plethora of Bucks Island hats. We got a new shipment in the other day. Pretty excited. This one here is it's kind of an Auburn themed.
Yeah, that's good. This is the Alabama theme, since we kind of picking our respective teams.
Yeah,
so to speak.
We're fairly split down the middle, I think, as a shop. But we still managed to get along and get the job done.
Well,
right?
We do have a couple of Tennessee fans. We did not get any Tennessee hats, so maybe we'll work on that if there's enough people out there that like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oof. That's good stuff. Well, Chuck, what's the best technique to catch bass during the summer? This is the wrong show for you. I have absolutely no clue. I was out fishing yesterday and no luck. But we're going to be talking more about that. Actually, tomorrow we're going to have Dr. Pirani on from Casting for Cancer.
Okay. Yeah.
And Dano and I will talk to him about the tournament they've got coming up on Neely. And probably answer some good stuff on how to catch some fish. But today we are talking boat tech, fuel questions.
And just so they know, I don't fish, so it doesn't.
Yeah. It's not that we have the knowledge and we're not sharing it. We don't have the knowledge. So
I know the guys from the fishery, they got this really great shocking device that brings them to the surface. And then there used to be a guy down by the bridge that used to throw dynamite in the water. It worked really well. But they don't come up alive.
We are working on some bass fishing information. We actually, I think this weekend we're going to level up our game a little bit on the fishing report. So super excited, figuring out some technical issues. But I think we're going to get some more info there that we do every week coming out Saturday mornings on what's going on around our local lakes. And then we're working on some other stuff since we didn't get to do Fish Fest.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into that, but it's going to be good. All right.
Timmy.
Let me jump in. We're to purchase a new 20-foot pontoon. Do you recommend a 90 or 115 horse motor, and why?
I would say that I always try to go max horsepower if I can, but some of these pontoons that'll hold a 115 now hold a 250 as well. So, we've got some 23 footers out there that are ready for 250, but I've seen 115s on them. But I don't know how much difference in the money is, but I usually try to go with the higher horsepower rating. If it's rated for 115, I'd rather have a 115 on it. And it seems we had one year, I guess maybe last year, we ordered a lot of boats with 90s to put up.
Yep.
To put on those boats, and it seemed like everybody wanted a 115. So I guess you can just go with everybody else and get that 115.
Yeah, power. So usually what I tell folks when they're asking me, the 90 will do it. And there's a lot of folks that if you know that the 90 is what you want, if you're not really going to do a whole lot of tubing, but I spent years tubing behind a tri-tune with a 90 horse on it. My grandfather was cheap, and that's what he bought.
Yeah.
I certainly would prefer to have a bigger motor. I've never met anyone that said, I wish I'd gotten a smaller motor on my boat.
I actually met one today.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay.
There's an older guy who bought a 90, and he went from a 40.
Well,
and he called back wanting a small motor.
Okay, so let me caveat that with the reasonable differences.
Yeah.
Certainly that 115 is going to be a little bit more expensive, typically $1,000 to $1,500 cost.
But it always costs more later on.
Yes,
that's the thing.
And that's the thing. So resale right now, that's something I always like to point out. Most people don't buy and hold on to a pontoon boat, especially if you get a 20-foot pontoon boat. Later on, you're probably going to want something a little bit bigger, maybe with a little more performance down the road. Family, friends get bigger. You figure out, a little bit more what you want to do. You will get your money back out of that 115 for sure on resale value alone. That's just my opinion. I don't think service-wise or fuel consumption-wise, I think it's a very negligible difference.
Yeah, service is the same. It's the same motor, basically. So.
Yeah. So that's definitely a good question. Something we get asked all the time, and like Iz said, we're seeing a lot more and more. Everybody's stepping up the horsepower. Where everybody was satisfied with a 150 on the Tri-Tunes, I think we're selling more and more of the 200s and bigger motors. And certainly some of the big high-end boats that have a lot of fiberglass paneling on them, they get real heavy, and those big motors are really kind of a must. Yeah, good question.
Tim's back.
Timmy Taylor, have everyone. Thanks for hosting this event. And War Eagle, yes. Well, you're welcome. Does Yamaha have any wireless Bluetooth smart gauges? Just got the new ZXR and would like to see engine info on one gauge or graph.
No Bluetooth. They have a Bluetooth device, but it's dealer only. It's diagnostic equipment. Will they be coming out with something Bluetooth in the future? Lord, I hope so, because it's easy technology, and it would be just like what Mercury's got right now. It would be a plug-and-play item. They have the technology, they have the resources. I think they're probably, I haven't heard anything coming down the pipe, but usually they don't tell us anything. It just shows up, or we hear it from our RTAs. So I would hope something's coming down the pipe in the future. I don't think it'll be a gauge. I think it'll be an app for a phone. Okay. Because that's what ours is. They do have,
it's like Mercury's.
Yeah, and Skeeter has the Skeeter gauge that you can buy a kit, and it ends up with it being installed. It's kind of expensive. It ends up being about $800. So that's always an option. It's nice looking. I've had several people get them put on, but it's not a cheap option. Now, if you have Lowrance products or Solix, I believe you can get engine data with those by using the NEMA network and a network starter kit, and the Yamaha. They sell a Yamaha cable for the NEMA 2000.
Now you
can do that. But the Helix has the capability, but you don't get hours. You don't get hardly any information. You get tachometer. We haven't found a good way to make the Helixes work yet. I've got some other things I'm going to check out. But by the time you buy everything for a Helix that I think might work, which includes about a $400 Yamaha box, that I think if you put all those together, it would work. But you're at the same price as you would be if you got the gauge in the NEMA system. And I'd much rather have the gauge.
Well, could you just do a basic hour meter? I mean,
yeah, but the basic hour meters are not going to be accurate. Even the one that you wrap around the coil, it'll give you approximate data, but it's nowhere near as accurate as what that.
Well, if you're just looking for something to gauge, when am I due for 100 hour? Is that going to get you close enough? Assuming you don't want to spend the money on.
It'll get you pretty close. Yeah. I had one guy tell me the other day that he hated it because it was like by the time he got to like 200 hours, it was 20 hours off, one way or the other. So it just depends on how picky you are, I guess.
All right, let's. Trent, I have an 03 150 OX 66 that's giving me fits. It has spark on all cylinders with a spark tester connected at cranking, but it has a miss. Could it be injectors?
To be real honest with you, it could be a lot of things. Those are real. At this time, they used to not be, but the older they get, the more finicky they seem to be. And I've fought them tooth and nail. I've had issues with them, and pretty much replaced everything on them at one point, and still had a problem with them. So I think a lot of issues that those motors have are internal mechanical issues at this point, because I've had a lot of them that we did a lot of heavy diagnosing on them. We changed harnesses. We found problems in harnesses, found corrosion in harnesses, replaced all the stuff we found bad, and still had running issues with them. So without seeing it, and not that I necessarily want to see it, but it's hard to put your finger on it. I know they've had O2 sensor issues. Sometimes you can unplug sensors, like you can plug the temperature, heat temperature sensor on it, and see if it runs good like that, and that puts it in a closed loop where it doesn't read all the sensors anymore, and it basically batch fires. You can do that, and that can tell you a lot. That's about as good as information I can give you right now. Is maybe to unplug a thermal sensor and see if it runs better. And if it does, then you probably got some kind of peripheral issue like a sensor, O2 sensor, something like that.
All right.
If it doesn't get any better, it could be the ECU, it could be a stator, trigger, throttle position sensor. It could be the 2-stage little thing that runs the fuel pump.
All right.
TPS, who knows? There's a lot of things. I've had a cracked flywheel do that before. So.
All right. Well, Trent, good luck. Well,
that's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
At one time.
Hit us back up. Certainly bring it in if needed, or call up to the shop. If they've got a few minutes to talk, I'm sure somebody will help answer a few questions. But just don't ask them to be on the phone for like an hour and a half talking.
Well, or you can just watch that again, because that's pretty much what I'm going to tell you if I'm on the phone.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's up to you.
So go back. All right. Tim Taylor, 2020 Skeeter trailer. Does the trailer jack require routine maintenance?
Yeah, I mean, you could. There's a little piece you can pop off the top, and then you can put some grease in there. But typically, I don't see any failures on the top end much. What I will tell you though is if you jack it too far down, like if you're jacking it up to stow it, I've actually seen guys jack it up and they'll be this far off the ground to stow it, and it doesn't need to go that far. You do not need to jack it all the way till it stops, because you will have problems with it if you do.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it pulls the threads out of the nut. We'll have to take it apart and get it to restart to come back down. But I've noticed that on those new G2 Fulton jacks. If you jack it all the way up, you're going to have an issue. It won't come back down. Other than that, I've seen the older ones, and they don't know if these have been out long enough. The shaft itself will get gummed up and get real hard to turn, and people think it's the gearing up top, but it's actually the shaft that's moving up and down. Gets a lot of debris on it, and you can actually flip it upside down. And I use engine tuner because it actually will break the stuff up.
Okay.
Which we sell in parts, but it's stinking nasty, and you need to wear gloves and wash it off when you're done, and then put penetrating oil. But if you get a high-end penetrating oil, I'm not saying WD-40 is not high-end, but there's better stuff out there. But if you spray that and just let it soak overnight, put your rag under it, and when you flip it back over, clean it off, it'll keep that from happening. So I do that maybe once a year.
Once a year?
Yeah.
All right.
And it'll discolor that metal because it's not a nice shiny chrome piece of metal. It's actually die-cast aluminum.
Okay.
Just keep that in mind.
All right. Pam Carter, I'd love a hat. Well, we got them on the website, and of course you can come in here. I think we're still working on getting the new colors. What are they? $23?
Yeah, I wanted to just let them see it, but it won't focus. $23.
It's like in my face, man.
23.
It's they're on the website. We're working on getting the new colors up there. All right, we got another question from Tim Taylor. The 2003 Mercury 150 XR6 with a failed lower unit. Trying to order a replacement, but don't know the gear ratio. Apparently, this engine could come with a 1.87 or 2.0 gear ratio. Drive shaft and prop shaft don't turn When in gear, any idea how I can find the gear ratio on the existing lower unit?
Yeah. I had to do this not too long ago, and I can't remember what I came up with. But you can count the teeth on the gears, and you take the pinion gear and the other gear, and you divide one into the other. Some of them actually have the stamp on the back. It'll say like um, it'll give you the number of teeth on it, but I don't know if yours is new enough to do that. But there's the ratio is basically taking the teeth on one gear and dividing it by the teeth on the other gear. And the only real way to do that is to pull the carrier and count the teeth. But if it's locked up, um, it'd be hard to do that. But I can probably find that information. I'll just have to look. I'm going to probably guess that it's a 1.87 to 1 because most of them are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It seems like that number is more familiar. I know the Mercuries tend to run that 2 to 1 ratio, but I think I'd be more of a proponent of a 1.87 to 1.
All right, Pamela. What are your thoughts on Evinrude with BRP? Not really a tech question, I guess, but so I think you're referring to BRP shutting down Evinrude. And
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a business decision for BRP in terms of, are they moving, selling motors and profitable?
I think they're kind of they got good technology. I mean, they got some fancy stuff, especially on the G2. With their steering and their new trim, but it's almost a little over-engineered in my opinion. And everybody in the world's gone 4-stroke, and they've kind of decided to stick to their guns and stay with a 2-stroke motor, which it's a strong motor. I'm a believer in the 4-stroke and the technology they've poured into the 4-stroke market with all the variable valve timing and stuff. That's a more reliable setup than 2-stroke, because 2-stroke will never really be real efficient because there's a lot of waste.
So we've sold we did one Falcon about 2 years ago with an Evinrude for a guy down in Florida, and that worked out. We're not an Evinrude dealer. On the commercial side, though, we have a sister company here called Rescue One that builds first responder boats for first responder units all over the world. And we definitely will move some Evinrudes. Now, most of that is going to be your smaller, 40s and some 60s and stuff like that.
And we didn't see a lot of problems with those.
Yeah.
As far as mechanical failures, as long as they were being used. Had a few issues with, fuel pump setups and oil tanks just falling apart. But I think they fixed a lot of that stuff. But overall, I'm a Yamaha Mercury guy, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I would also say if you were in the market for buying a boat right now, and I hate the dealers that are stuck out there with Evinrudes on them, but that's something you need to do the homework on and seeing how you're going to get warranty support and making sure you understand all that, because that's a very expensive investment to not be able to get the support after and I haven't really looked into what are their plans to continue manufacturing parts and all that kind of stuff. But
and usually they sell. Somebody may buy them out, and usually if you sell a company, they don't necessarily have to honor certain things in their warranty. So.
But the good thing is, it doesn't sound like they're going. Like BRP is not going out of business. They're just shutting down manufacturing, and
somebody will take over that name, and they'll make a 4-stroke, I'm sure, and it'll be somebody else's engine with Evinrude decals on it. So.
All right, why do speeds decrease in the summer on the show?
Okay, well, that's a good question.
I'd really expand that to any.
Most motors, most engines are going to do that. Some are a little more, I guess, susceptible than others, and to weight as well. They're real susceptible to weight. But if you think about the air and the water temperature, So the air temperature in the wintertime is more dense with oxygen. Okay. And oxygen is the lifeline of these motors. You can have all the fuel you want, but if you don't get any oxygen in there, you're not going to get a good combustion. So the wintertime, you got the cooler air is denser. You're going to have more oxygen. You're going to have a better, um, uh, a larger amount of oxygen get into the system. So you're going to have more horsepower. Okay. More horsepower is more speed. So, on the other hand, you look at the water temperatures. The water temperatures are cooler, right? So the cooler the water temperature is, the more bite your prop has. It actually will connect to the water better and not have as much slip. So the less slip you have with your prop, the faster your boat's going to go. So summertime, the water's hotter, you get less grip on the water, and and you're not going to perform as well. So that's really the nuts, guts, and feathers of it.
Yeah, it's really not anything specific to the show. That's anything. Back in my days of flying with the Navy, we always talked about high, hot, heavy. So the higher in altitude you are, again, less oxygen, less air density, less lift, less oxygen for your motors. And then the hotter you are, the less performance you are.
Yeah.
And
then you got different fuels. You got
Yep.
summer and winter blend fuels, and that will make a big difference, especially if you accidentally, suddenly, I mean, if this gas station still got winter blend fuel in their tanks, and you know how Alabama is, it's suddenly summer like that, and then you pour winter blend fuel into your gas tank, and it's a 90-degree day. All of a sudden, it's not going to act right at all, because it's going to have knock sensors going off, and it's going to actually reduce your horsepower then.
So if you're really worried about it, if you got a really dramatic drop or whatever, what's some things that you could do to mitigate, like changing your prop seasonally?
Well, and that's a good thing to do. It's good to have a winter and summer prop, especially for a bass boat, because you're going to run. You're probably going to hit the rev limiter. If your engine had, like the Mercury doesn't have rev limiters anymore, it just stops you wherever it wants to stop you, depending on the load. It's got a little, calculation in the computer that we have to go by even when we're propping the boat. But because your engine's going to run better in the wintertime, more horsepower wise, it's good to have a little bit bigger pitch. So a Skeeter 21 foot is going to be able to run a 26, whereas in the summertime, 25 is going to be the ideal prop for you. So you may want to consider that.
That's and I guess the good news is, particularly if you're on a budget and you're a bass guy, probably want to have a spare prop anyways, particularly if you're doing tournament fishing. Yeah. So
these days, as high as we're running these motors out of the water, it's going to sling in here eventually. So you need to have a contingency. If it doesn't bend your prop shaft, you can at least throw it on there and keep on going.
All right, 1994. Oh, it's a good year, huh? XR6 issues starting at times. It will start, but any gas often dies. I was thinking bulb or reeds, carbs haven't been cleaned for a while.
Yeah, I guess the issue when you first crank it up or after you've used it a while, because I know some of the XR6s tend to have a little bit of restarting issues. They're kind of get vapor lock real easy. So I'm not sure where you're at on it, if it's after you've run it and fished for a while, but if it's when you're first starting up, it won't crank and it goes dead. There's just so many issues on that particular motor. It could be because it runs, power packs. You could have one power pack bad, and it's only running on 3 cylinders, and it's not going to do well at all, especially if you try to give it gas. Could have a trigger issue. Could have a good stator on the low side, a bad stator on the high side, because it runs a 2-stage stator. And usually, if you test spark, it's going to give you an idea. If you've lost 2 cylinders of spark on XR6, more likely you got a trigger issue. If you got spark on all 6 of them, and when you give it gas to take off, it goes dead, I would lean towards a bad stator, or possibly a fuel issue. Okay, it could be either one. If you've got only fire on 3 cylinders on one side, you could have you could have a power pack issue. One of your
Right.
power packs might be bad, and if one power pack's bad, I would suggest that you go ahead and replace both of them, because if one's out, the other one's on its way out the door. And if you got one cylinder bad, one not sparking, then you might have a bad coil
Okay.
or coil wire. So if you didn't get all that, just hit rewind at the end.
All right. And of course, it's also, if you're watching on Facebook, all this is being pumped over to YouTube as well to make it easy. Sometimes it's easier to find videos over on YouTube than it is to look back on Facebook.
And there's some other issues it could be, but those are the most common.
All right. Hope that helps. Back to the G2, the Evinrude discussion. Loving the G2. Thoughts and worries. The worst down the road. Hoping for a profit. Thanks, guys, for the.
And like I said, the G2s. I don't have any issues with them overall. I mean, as far as their power, I mean, they're strong. They got great technology. I just think they need to. They should have probably invested in putting all that nice technology into a 4-stroke.
Yeah.
I think it would have made their company stronger. I think they probably, lasted longer in that market. So.
Well, and the worst down the road. I mean, that's definitely that's going to be a question every time a manufacturer shuts down or stops getting the support. That can hurt some of that resale value. But
and even the E-Techs they were strong motors and had good stuff as far as speed. They're usually a little bit faster than everybody. So some of the Mercury was, and even back in the day, the Fit, which gave us a lot of trouble, was a real strong motor. But I think that the strength of that motor might have been their downfall because it blew up a lot.
I will caveat our discussion with Evinrude in our area, our region. I'm not sure where you are, Pamela, but certainly in our region, Alabama, Evinrude is not a top desirable motor. And that's
up north and in Florida.
I mean, it's not a question that we don't have that discussion of is it a good or a bad motor. It's just that customers, that's not what they want, and for multiple reasons. So we are a little skewed in how we look at some of the stuff.
We sold a few on oddball situations and have not worked on. I don't even know if we've technically worked on one. So I can't give you a real, clear, honest opinion about all the stuff that's going on with them or any of that. I know what my opinion is for the company as a whole.
Yep.
And where they've gone in technology. But as far as whether it's a bad engine or a good engine, I can't give you a real good opinion on that, just because we don't really work on them here.
Yep. Well, in our market, most of what we deal with, pontoons, bass boats, like there's a lot of technology that's cool, but way overkill for those boats. So
and I know on those you have to have 2 people to change a water pump. You have to, because you got to have somebody pulling all the stuff out of the wiring and out of the motor, and it's got hydraulic stuff in there, and you got to take 100 panels off to get the spark plugs and stuff like that. So,
all right, Mr. Taylor, with another question. A few weeks for my 100-hour. Weren't you just in here for your 20? That's awesome. If you're getting some running time on that boat, that's
lasts
awesome.
Longer that way.
Do you guys change all filter, spark plugs, and water pump impeller as a standard, or is it an inspect and change if needed for plugs and impeller?
Most time we change most of that. The plugs, we inspect those. We don't typically change those. If you were in more of a brackish water, saltwater application, maybe so, because we don't want them getting stuck in there. But we typically get about 300 hours out of those plugs. So it's like a car. You don't, 2 strokes, we want to change them at least once a year, just because of the nature of the burn. It doesn't burn all the carbon off. So we typically look at those a little more often. But we want to do them at least every 300 hours, just because of the RPM that these things run and the amount of voltage they're pushing out. I don't like to go past 300 hours with them. So but we're probably not going to do them unless you really want them to spend an extra $60 on spark plugs. We'll change them. We love changing spark plugs because they're easy. But I wouldn't do that to y'all as a customer unless you really needed it or just really wanted it. So, but filters, yes, filters are great to change every year. Oil you need to change every year because it has a shelf life, especially in a motor when it's out, out there in the environment, near water and different stuff like that. It's going to absorb moisture, and the more moisture it absorbs, you might not see it, but it's there. It breaks down the viscosity properties, in the flow properties and the lubricant properties of the oil over time. So it's good to go ahead and change it. And then another lower unit's a sealed unit, so it's not getting oxygen, but it's running more RPMs than the motor is because it's geared.
Okay.
And it needs to be changed for two reasons, because it builds up sulfides in it and gets stinky and nasty and loses its viscosity and lubricating properties. But also, you never know. It's hard to check SHO for fishing line around the prop.
Gotcha.
Unless you pull the prop off, it's just hard to see it because there's no holes inside anymore. So we get a lot of fishing line in the water nowadays, and it will, it won't necessarily tear the seal up, but it's going to open it up to get water in the lower unit. And not only is it bad for the lower unit and the gears and the bearings, but if you get enough in there wintertime and it freezes outside and your lower unit's out there, it will either shoot the bearing carrier out the back or it's going to crack the side of the casing. And then it's open to the atmosphere, it's going to rust and it's going to lock the bearings up. And it's new lower unit time. Insurance will pay for that most of the time, though. So if it does ever happen.
Oh, Tim, you crack me up. Seriously, the best service and dealer there is. Thank y'all for help on my boat-related needs, especially to the office crew that answers my frequent calls with questions.
And I like to, to stress right now, we're going as fast as we can. I know I'm up here, but this is my lunch break. So if you're asking why aren't you working on our boats, well, I sacrifice my lunch break on Tuesdays to talk to people, and I eat a snack instead while I'm working. So, but everybody's working down there as fast as they can.
Although we are seeking sponsorships for Tech Tuesday from any local restaurants that are interested.
We won't eat with our mouths full, I promise. But those guys that down there are working as fast as they can. And the guy brought his boat today, and he saw our boats are going up into the sales department now, and there's a lot of them out there. And I've never, since I've been here 16, 17 years now, and I've never had to tell people that we're 6 weeks out, 5 to 6 weeks out. And I don't even, it's hard to believe it and hard to hear when my ladies at the desk are saying, I'm sorry, but we're 5 to 6 weeks out.
Yeah.
And when we've had to limit our years to, like, we don't work on anything right now over 25 years old, just because we have to stop at a certain point.
Yeah.
And because our slate is so full. So I apologize ahead of time if you do bring your boat. We're a good ways out. And we don't, we don't want to be, but we can only work on the ones in front of us.
So go ahead and, call and schedule. It's a problem, I think, across, to be honest, across all industries where you've got good technicians. It is hard. I mean, it'd be great if we could hire 15 more guys back there and crank through boats, but that's just not.
And we don't want to rush through the stuff either.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
If you rush through it and you think you got it done and you don't go and river test it, people get really upset.
So,
and we try not to upset people.
Now, I had a conversation with somebody on the internet this morning, actually, that's been watching some of these videos and is going to stop in. He's been watching our fishing reports. He's fishing Neely Henry, and I did mention, like, if you're in the area or if you live local or whatever, and you got a tournament, at least give us a call and give us a chance to see what hoop we can jump through. We try to use some common sense approach. If you got a tournament this weekend, we want to try and keep you on the water as best we can. Obviously, we're not going to do that at the expense of other customers that came in before you, but some jobs.
And most of the time we can accommodate that. This year has been really hard to do that.
So it's tough. We definitely are doing the absolute best we can to keep up. I mean, COVID, for one thing, has sparked an insane amount of boat usage this year. So that alone, I think, has got a lot of boats out there.
And I know most everybody knows we're closed on Mondays now.
Yep.
Because of the time. I mean, this is our fall hours, but we're still working on Mondays. But the reason we didn't do it early really this year, but we close on Mondays, and it kind of gives our guys a break whenever we're caught up. But we come on Mondays because we don't get as disturbed when we're closed, and we work all day anyways, and we can get a lot more done. And we've been coming in every Monday, when typically we'll come in every other Monday just to kind of get caught up. But we've been having to do it every Monday just because we've been so backed up. So we're pulling all the punches that we can to accommodate. So if you do bring your boat, just know it'll be a while, and we'll try to be patient with you.
All right. I got two more. Just saw Pam's comment. Had a Yamaha on the Skeeter up north recently before BRP stopped. Purchased a Triton with an Evinrude. So far, so good. I think those G2s are good motors. Reach out if you need. So we certainly do what we can to help you, but just do keep in mind that we are not a certified Evinrude dealer, but at this point, certainly will help in any way that we possibly can. So does that seem like a reasonable? Just keep in mind that we're not we're limited in the amount of schooling that we've sent our guys to, the amount of equipment that we've got to really do stuff on the brand new motors.
And that's about when we stopped being not because we didn't want Evinrude, it's just the requirements they put on dealers to buy their product to stay at Evinrude dealer were a lot higher than what we could accommodate. So that's really the only reason we parted ways. It was what we call semi-amicable parting of the ways. Nobody's mad at each other. But
all right.
Yeah.
Well, and here's my last one. I saw this on one of the forums. Man, learn how to tie some knots. Be careful. While that's humorous about good knot, good line. It is something to think about. You're in water levels change. It's a very fluid environment out there with a boat. So maybe think ahead a little bit with what you're doing. Don't get complacent.
And Michael was a Navy guy, but he told me his specialty was not in knots.
No.
That was for the other guys.
I was a flyer. We didn't do a lot with knots on airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
If we were holding things together with knots on jet aircraft, that was not a good day. Yeah. All right. Well, you got anything else? I think that was a long one.
Yeah, it was good questions. I appreciate everybody chiming in and being here to have. It's a lot easier when you ask questions than it is here just with crickets in the background. That's for sure. And,
all right, guys.
And Roll Tide and
War Eagle.
There you go.
So, guys, appreciate you hanging in with us and hanging out with us. Thanks for the good questions. I hope everybody's good and healthy, having fun on the water. Man, they're already talking about cold fronts coming in. Season's changing, but hopefully you're getting out and having some fun with family or by yourself, I guess, if that's what you're into. We will talk to you next week. Thank you, guys. Don't forget, like, subscribe, and we'd appreciate it if you kind of share this around.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Yeah.